for that introduction, Sam. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Scully. I'm president of People's Action for Clean Energy, or PACE. It's an honor to be a part of this great event. PACE was formed in 1977 to promote and educate about clean, renewable energy. We continue this mission today through data-driven analysis of Connecticut's energy usage and through collaboration with towns to transition to 100% clean energy. First slide, please. But I'm speaking today on behalf of the Coalition for Sensible Solar Regulation. This coalition is a growing group of business leaders, solar installers, environmentalists, and municipal leaders concerned that community and commercial solar is being held back in Connecticut due to unnecessary restrictions. Next slide, please. These restrictions include a 50 megawatt annual cap on commercial solar, a 25 megawatt annual cap on shared clean energy facilities, a 10 megawatt annual cap on low emission projects. We propose doubling these limits. There's also a limitation on the size of a solar array to the local electric load. In other words, you can't produce more electricity than you use locally. We propose removing this limit. And I'd like to be clear, our focus here is on commercial and community solar, not residential and not grid scale or utility scale. So as a result of these constraints, the majority of proposed commercial and community solar projects get stranded. Many projects are undersized vis-a-vis their potential, and in general, we are not able to realize the potential, the many benefits of commercial solar. Each of these constraints was created by legislative act, and we believe could be remedied in a short legislative session. I'm cognizant that we are requesting an increase in solar incentives. Naturally, the question arises, what impact will these changes have on electric rates, particularly for those customers for whom monthly energy bills are a hardship? In the spirit of informing this conversation, let's look at some numbers. And we'll go to the next slide, please. We've estimated the impact on electric rates of our proposed increase in program caps. These estimates make it clear that the ratepayer impact of our recommendations is negligible, and it's far, far less than the benefits. The calculation is relatively simple. We look at the cost of each program, net of the benefits. For example, for commercial solar, the cost is about 17 cents per kilowatt hour, consisting of net metering plus ZRECs. The direct electric system benefits or avoided costs are about 9 cents, so giving us a net cost of about 8 cents per kilowatt hour. We simply multiply this number by the number of kilowatt hours resulting from the new higher cap, and we spread this cost across the entire ratepayer base. As you can see, the result is for an average ratepayer an increase of 15 cents per month. For community solar, the cost would be an additional 2 cents a month. While these costs are not zero, they will have negligible impact on our overall electric rates. And these costs pale in comparison with the many benefits of commercial and community solar. We go to the next slide, please. Foremost among these benefits is the economic opportunity these projects represent for Connecticut businesses, small, medium, and large companies across the state. By putting solar on their roof or their parking lot, are able to lower their electric costs and realize the revenues of being a solar generator. We should encourage this, not restrict it unnecessarily. And remember, we're talking about commercial solar that businesses site on their own premises, not grid scale solar. These projects face fewer siting challenges, can be deployed quickly and at much less risk. And by building on real estate that has already been developed, we reduce the need for solar on farmland and forests, which is something I think we all want to do. Moreover, with these caps in place, Connecticut will not reach its own emission reduction goals without A, relying on large deployments of grid scale resources, many of them from out of state, and B, extending the contract for Millstone Nuclear. Current plans call for only moderate deployments of commercial solar and would leave us without sufficient zero carbon resources by the end of this decade to replace Millstone. Our only option at that point would be to extend Millstone on their terms. Connecticut should not let itself get into this position. Importantly, both commercial and community solar are effective tools to advance energy equity. These programs give preference to distressed communities, and the Shared Clean Energy Facility program is working toward a 100% low to moderate income subscribership goal, and in the process, lowering energy costs for vulnerable populations. Finally, these programs increase the resilience of the grid by reducing reliance on large centralized and out-of-state resources, especially when paired with storage or as part of a microgrid. Take a look at the rooftop in the lower right of this slide. This business would love to have put solar on their entire roof, providing necessary resources to the grid and earning a revenue stream in the process. But because they don't use enough electricity in their business, they were limited to a small section of the roof. To realize the full potential of rooftop commercial solar, we will need to use each available roof, whether it uses the power locally or serves the grid. These recommendations speak to a fundamental question about Connecticut's energy strategy. To what extent do we want to rely on out-of-state resources versus having the economic benefits accrue to Connecticut businesses and state tax coffers? We strongly recommend the latter. And the last slide, please. Finally, I'd like to draw your attention to a particularly valuable solar resource in the state. As we seek to minimize the impact of solar development on agricultural lands, we should consider leaning in on the potential of solar canopies. PACE has carried out a detailed analysis of the potential of canopies in Connecticut. This analysis will be presented in greater detail by my colleague Kieran Rudge in Thursday's land conservation session. We estimate that Connecticut could site 7 gigawatts of commercial solar on 8,400 canopies, essentially parking lots across the state, generating 37% of our current electricity needs. Canopies have some unique advantages, including protected parking, location close to electric loads, natural pairing with storage and EV charging, and the ability to directly serve distressed communities, especially as shared solar facilities. Unfortunately, canopies also require a higher initial investment than rooftop solar. Several neighboring states offer additional incentives for solar canopies. We are proposing a 6-cent per kilowatt hour adder for solar canopy projects. This simple step could help realize the potential of this resource with minimal ratepayer impact and lasting benefits for the state's natural resources and energy mix. In closing, doubling current limits on commercial and community solar and removing the limit of size to load, legislative acts which Connecticut could achieve in the upcoming session, we can begin to unleash the potential of these resources. The ratepayer impact is negligible, with a large share of the benefits going to vulnerable populations. The advantages to the state, including greater economic opportunities, equity, and preservation of agricultural lands, will be substantial and lasting. Thanks, and I'm pleased to hand over to my